you had to have gone undefeated in the regular season and gotten some help to make the playoffs. So I'm not going to say it's 0%, but it's less than 5% for Liberty to make the playoff. But there's still a lot to play for if you're the Flames. Winning a conference championship, having that element of a point of pride. That's the big goal for Liberty, for football, and frankly, for most teams at this juncture of the year. And we can laugh about Virginia and the trip to NC State, and it's an ACC opponent, even though it's a non-conference game. Good luck trying to explain that to people that are not diehard football fans. Like, I had to explain that to my brother, to my wife over the weekend. They're both sitting there going, dude, what in the world is this? This is the stupidest thing. Like, and I'm just sitting there. I can't even dispute the absurdity of it. Even though, we had Dave Doran on at the ACC kickoff, and he mentioned that, it's better than playing teams far away. And maybe from a travel standpoint, I understand it. From a fan confusion standpoint, you can kind of scratch your head at this. I mean, I think we may not have to worry about it much longer. If the Big Ten and the SEC play 9 conference games, we'll probably get it in the ACC. But from the big picture point of the season right now, Tony Elliott liking what he sees. There's no moral victories, but we're going to have our heads held high, which is kind of code for we're taking a bit of a moral victory on this. I understand that because there are things that jump out for both Virginia and Liberty in their losses over the weekend where you can sit there and reasonably go, okay, if we clean that up, and if is almost as bad as hope, but not quite. But if we clean that up, maybe we do need to start beeping it out. Then maybe we can be better as a program. Maybe we can get down that road. And for Virginia, I will start by saying this. Their defense has some serious concerns. They gave up 6.5 yards per rush. But what they said about their defensive struggles does make sense when you compare it to the fact that I trust Liberty's coaching staff more program-wise than I do Virginia's. I know we're in year 3 of Jamie Chadwell. Year 1, epic year. Year 2, last year, clearly not. Year 3, off to a rocky start for the Flames. But I trust it because they also have a history of success at Georgia Southern and at Coastal Carolina before this. This coaching staff they've proven they know what they're doing schematically. Yes, college football has changed. I'll grant you that. And maybe Jon Manson will disagree when he joins us from AseaofRed.com around 5:40 today here in the Fast Lane to discuss that. But I get the line of thinking. And so if they're going to say the same thing that Liberty said, I'll buy into that. And from Liberty's standpoint, one of the most key elements to them is the fact that a lot of their mistakes in Jamie Chadwell's eyes were self-inflicted.
I think all 3 of those drives ended in punts. So 3 little penalties and all ended in punts. And we got to be able to do a better job of overcoming. And so those are things that I don't think I think we're playing relatively disciplined. If you told me, hey, you're going to have 3 penalties total, that's pretty dang good. But those 3 penalties have killed drives, and so those are things that are all definitely fixable. We just have to do a better job of overcoming some of those things. But we can't turn the ball over at the end of the day, and when you turn the ball over against a really good team, but a great player, they're going to take advantage of it. And they did.
So they're mistakes. They're self-inflicted mistakes, things that are correctable. Now, there are things also for Liberty that are a bigger picture concern, and we may get into the weeds Wednesday in the Fast Lane on what they are. I think they can navigate them this week against Coastal Carolina, against Bowling Green. But Liberty, they're banged up right now. You got injuries to CJ Bazille. Defensively, it's unlikely he's going to go. You got a couple others in the trenches as well. There's some serious concerns there for the Flames. But they're self-inflicted mistakes offensively. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Jamie Chadwell highlighted this, and it's the idea that a lot of it's just missed tackles and assignments, which you would think as a casual fan at least, and certainly even as a coach, it is easily correctable or at least reasonably correctable.
Missed tackles happen because you assume that one guy's going to get them down. And so we do it. We've got one guy that makes a great play on somebody, but then everybody else is sort of standing around. Oh, he got him down. And if you're swarming the football the way you should be, then maybe that missed tackle you tackle them for 4 yards instead of 15, right? And so those are the things that are fixable. We assume too much, and that'll be fixed where guys will be swarming the ball. That's missed tackles happen. Everybody's getting missed tackles, but you don't want to have people standing around thinking that guy's gonna make a tackle and he takes it 20, 30 yards. And so we can fix that.
We can fix that. We can stop assuming. And I wonder if, by the way, Jamie Chadwell has given the old, what happens when you assume speech to the Flames. Like, I really, shame on me to get my usher on for a brief moment here in the Fast Lane. I failed to ask Jamie Chadwell at the press conference. Well, if assuming the other guy's going to tackle leads to problems, well, have you given them the assume speech? You know, I know you're not supposed to curse over on the mountain. It's frowned upon in general, and we try to avoid it. But, you make a bleep out of you and me. That's the old saying for assuming. So for the Flames, that's the case. But backing up what Jamie Chadwell said, again, same thing with Tony Elliott about the Virginia Cavaliers, pretty much to a T.
If we tackle a little bit better, trigger on our angles a little bit better, at times. There's a couple plays where they did a really good job offensively and had us up. Like, that's going to happen from time to time. But I do feel like we left a couple plays out on the field defensively where we had solid calls, guys in position. We just didn't down the football the way that we did in the first game.
Didn't down the ball the way that we did in the first game. We weren't there. I mean, it's like to a T. So I will grant you this. It's the first game of the year, or the second game of the year, but the first most stiff competition. Virginia opened up against Coastal Carolina. The game was largely non-competitive after the first quarter. Liberty, they opened against Maine. And while they struggled to put Maine away 28-7, 3 fourth quarter touchdowns were the difference, the Flames were always in control with the ability to run the football and control the line of scrimmage. So they always felt like they were in control, even though if you're a Flames fan, you were getting restless. Those things are easily correctable. Now, there are a couple of keys to whether or not this actually can transpire. And some of this goes back to what you've got overall with the team and where you are. Virginia, Liberty. Those are both things. Tony Elliott mentioned overall, he likes what he sees out of his team, which is part of the reason why he believes they can bounce back. And I will say I actually agree with him in the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, I still want to see more out of a defense that gave up over 6 yards a carry and seemed like they had no answers for NC State outside of a couple of late drives where magically things got better and they were able to stop the Wolfpack. And I think a part of it was key big third down conversions later in the game. But for Virginia, I still want to see more offensively, or defensively. But the reason why I believe there's at least a path to Virginia, much more than Virginia Tech is, offensively, this team looks really good. And it's why Tony Elliott is wise to say that he likes what he sees, and the fact that you go against NC State, this is an experienced team that can be a good learning point for Virginia.
And they got a ton of experience. And our offensive line is down our right tackle, playing a guy that's a backup guy for us, and we didn't give any sacks up either. So, man, I'm not going to get down on that. Man, that's a quarterback. That's a really good quarterback. He was going to get the ball out of his hand. Also too late, especially in the second half, when you're allowing him to stay ahead of the chains. It's very, very hard to get sacks when you're ahead of the chains, and then you can convert 5-yard throws into 9-yard gains, 10-yard gains. Man, it's hard to get pressure on him. I wish we would have found a way to knock one of those balls on the ground. But man, that was a good football game against 2 good football teams that were battling. That got good offensive personnel.
So I get where Tony Elliott's going about the good offensive personnel in those games, and I mean that's another way of again reinforcing the fact this is a Virginia team that they have invested heavily in the offseason to acquire offensive personnel, including Jamari Taylor, who, maybe Virginia Tech should have tampered with him as the allegations were made by that NC Central coach that's what Virginia Tech did. Maybe they actually should have to try to get his services because Virginia Tech, they have got issues of their own on the offensive line, even more so than Virginia does. And I have less confidence in Virginia Tech's offense than I do Virginia's, which is saying something because this is the first time I've really had confidence in Tony Elliott and the Virginia offense. But it's enough there that they should be able to railroad William and Mary. And that's the test for Virginia is, can they do that and be ahead enough in this game? Because we've seen prior years where Virginia will play these games and they might win by, 2 to 3 touchdowns. But for Virginia, if I'm a Wahoo fan, I want to see them up by 3 scores at the end of the first quarter. I want to see them up by 4 to 5 scores at halftime and really putting this game well out of reach so that in the second half, you can come out and by the fourth quarter, be playing backup players and working on developing depth. That's the step forward for Virginia, and that's where their offense, I have no doubt, will be able to bully William and Mary. They're just a bigger offensive line, and they have more skilled personnel. But can Virginia solve issues? Because I can buy the logic that NC State was a bit of a challenge. Dave Doran is a really good coach for NC State. I get they've hit their ceiling at times, and I don't think they'll ever be a 10 to 12 win team. I think they're more likely an 8 to 10 win program down in Raleigh. I think it's realistically their best year type ceilings. Now, they can beat a Clemson, a Miami, a Louisville, but stringing all that together and consistently over the course of the season, we've got enough body of work to be skeptical of that. But it's a good measuring stick for Virginia, and they did not pass particularly defensively. So can they do that? William and Mary is the type of game where Virginia may struggle against other teams defensively, Stanford, they should beat pretty soundly in a night game next Saturday in Charlottesville. Stanford is a drag of the ACC team in terms of where their program is. And Florida State, now more of a stiff challenge than before. But you got some time to work this out. If you're Virginia and you really were just missed assignments, then you should have no problem being in the right place and winning with your athleticism and dominating both sides against William and Mary. But part of it is understanding that and admitting that. And I will at least tip my cap a little bit to Virginia and what they did. Meanwhile, for Liberty, again, kind of similar mindset, but the idea of understanding where they are, because that's been a bigger programmatic question, I would say, for Liberty, certainly than Virginia in recent years, is the buy-in of players and what they have or have not shown. And look, again, to get my usher on, I was the one who asked Jamie Chadwell today about the fact that, do the players realize the mistakes that they made against Jacksonville State? And it doesn't mean you're going to correct all of them. Offensive line, we need to get into the weeds on that later this week. They're big concerns with the big sexies up front, as they like to be called. At Liberty and Virginia Tech, much more than at Virginia. But if nothing else, one of the knocks on the team last year, TJ, for Liberty, it's that they seem to be very out of touch with reality and that there didn't seem to be a connectedness. And that starts with, for this year's team, understanding that what they did Saturday against Jacksonville State was not horrible and they had good effort, but you still have to finish it off. You can't sit around and assume. This is not laziness of just not getting there or not wanting to make the tackle, but it's kind of that tentativeness and playing not to lose instead of playing free to win. And there's a little bit of a learning curve. I'll grant you that for Liberty, but I think when you look at last year's team, again, scar tissue is going to be there for Flames fans. I get it, and I will acknowledge that. But that's one of the things for last year's team for the Flames is, it felt like they were out of touch at times last year, clearly. And I think it's a reasonable knock on that. And that's why Jamie Chadwell, when he said this, realizing mistakes, that's something that has to be corrected.
They realize it. They know. I think anytime you don't play as well as you want, I mean, they saw that we're down and we kept coming back and kept punching and kept fighting back. But I think they understand that. And they know the expectations. I think right now it's just we got to do a better job, and they just got to continue to believe in themselves. Sometimes you have a bad day, and we didn't play as well collectively as we needed to, offensively or defensively, and you can lose confidence over that. But sometimes it's just a bad day, and our guys need to realize that we can be a good team. We got to clean some things up and just keep believing in themselves.
It's almost like Jamie Chadwell when he's speaking there, and we could do a bigger picture on this, is he's trying to pump up a little confidence into this team because the defense carried the way in the first game, but the offense struggled to get going. Then the offense, they made some good plays against Jacksonville State, but far too many mistakes. And the defense wasn't as perfect as they were in week one. And it's almost like, I get where Jamie Chadwell's coming from, TJ. I do think the pieces are there for Liberty to get it together, but you got to get it together against Bowling Green because JMU is going to pose a very formidable test. I know we're looking further ahead and the Flames are looking one game at a time and blah, blah, blah about that. But if you're the Flames, like realistically, to get back on track and to solve it, you have to admit your mistakes, correct them, but also play with a level of aggressiveness and confidence that you are finishing those plays defensively and that offensively you are making the correct decisive calls on offense, because when you hesitate, all of a sudden that is a part of when mistakes can pop up as well.
Yeah, an important thing to note, Bowling Green runs the same type of scheme Jacksonville State does. They're a heavy running team, and Liberty allowed almost 300 rushing yards against this team. So that's something, if you want redemption, there's your shot.
It definitely is. And for Liberty, they'll get their chance of that a little bit later. Meanwhile, we'll get a chance to hear from you because you've chimed in with different thoughts on the Flames' loss to Jacksonville State at Fastlane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and on the state of football in the Commonwealth of Virginia. That will come after the Fast Five at 5-ish, featuring those teams and some business moves as well. Good moves when we return. Trey, if you're listening, grab onto something. Make sure you're holding the steering wheel because the Fast Five at 5-ish is going to come with an admission that you may never have foreseen coming, especially after what happened last night on the VTR and Sports app. We will explain when we return here in the Fast Lane.
Mark Dalton here with the Terry Auto Group. If you don't love your car, then you're simply just driving the wrong one. At Terry Volkswagen, Terry Subaru, Terry Auto Outlet, and the Terry Clearance Center, we've got the perfect new or used car for you. We make your car buying experience easy. Need help with imperfect credit? No problem. Our team works hard to get you approved and back on the road. Because when you shop at Terry, you drive away happy. Visit us at any of our 4 locations or online at terryautogroup.com. Terry Auto Group. You'll love our cars.
This September 27th and 28th, come celebrate wine, music, and the beauty of SML at the Smith Mountain Lake Wine Festival, once again on the expansive lawn at Bernard's Landing. Enjoy award-winning Virginia wines, live music, artisan vendors, and gourmet bites, all with breathtaking views in every direction. Whether you're a wine lover or just looking for the perfect weekend getaway, this is the fall experience you've been waiting for. So get your tickets and more information at smlwinefestival.com.
Hi, I'm Matt with Fleet Feet Roanoke. I've enjoyed working with Ed Lane and the Virginia Talk Radio Network, but when they sold their Roanoke station, I was skeptical the partnership could still provide value. Months later, I'm thankful that Ed took the time to meet with me, discuss the right solutions, and a plan to invite his audience to Fleet Feet Roanoke. Now we're able to build a connection with that audience thanks to Ed's creativity. Stop by and see us at Fleet Feet Roanoke to learn more. We'd love to get to know you.
Email info@virginiatalkradionetwork.com to start growing your business.
Feel the excitement, experience the intensity. Castle Coliseum comes alive when Hokie basketball takes the court.
He made it on 1 foot. Lead. It's down.
From buzzer beaters to hard-fought battles, Virginia Tech men's and women's basketball takes on the toughest teams in the ACC.
Step up and in. Here come the Hokies. Castle erupts.
Don't just hear about it, be there. Tickets on sale now at Hokiesports.com.
AM radio provides always-on news, sports, talk, traffic, and weather reports. It also delivers vital emergency information when your community needs it most. A new bill in Congress would ensure AM radio stays in your car because when cell and internet services are down, this free emergency service is critical. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress to support the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Great Smith Mountain Lake is having their wine festival on September 27th and 28th. And we got you covered at InsaneRadioDeals.com. Great deals on tickets for this fabulous event. $25 for the taster ticket. And for VIP, $75. That's half of regular priced tickets. Go to InsaneRadioDeals.com and enjoy the fall weather at the Great Smith Mountain Lake Wine Festival.
From the blue waters of the Chesapeake Bay to the hills of Tennessee, listen to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle on the VTRN Sports app.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
Trey Lyle never thought this day would come. Heck, I didn't even think it was going to come, but it will right now to kick off the Fast Five at 5-ish.
It's time for Fast Five at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kind of ish. Let's start with number 5.
I'm not sold on Caleb Williams, the quarterback. Let's just keep that part real. But I give Caleb Williams a lot of credit. A lot's been made out of his swaggerific style and the fact that it necessarily has not been backed up by quality play. Heck, he looked like he was unstoppable in the first quarter last night, and then it just all kind of unraveled, and you kind of wonder exactly where things are going to go with the supposed reclamation project of Ben Johnson being the tutor, if you will, to Caleb Williams. But before the game, Caleb Williams did something awesome that carried over into the games. Caleb Williams had the suicide prevention logo painted on his fingernails for that matchup last night. Of course, you didn't know that because you were listening on the VTRN Sports app, so you don't have to ask for forgiveness here in the Fast Lane. We just accept your confession and go along our business. He also, Caleb Williams, had 988 for the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline painted on his nails. Look, for a guy that, again, the fingernail painting, sometimes it's bleep ND, F *** ND, or F, and then just, a couple of consonants after that, ND. That was kind of his thing back in college, and it's kind of childish and immature. I give him a lot of credit. If he's keeping that up, And I mean, look, I'm not going to tell the guy that he's, girly or, sissy or whatever for painting his fingernails. I really don't care if guys do or not. It doesn't really bother me one way or another, not really harming me. But I will throw this out there. If you're going to use it and it's become your attention calling card, first of all, you're in the NFL. You're pretty macho if you're in the NFL, and you're pretty tough being able to handle it. But second of all, that's a fantastic cause for Caleb Williams. He's flipping something like this around and using it for a good cause. Whatever it is, he needs to be commended, Caleb Williams does, for using his fingernail painting to help raise awareness for the suicide and crisis hotline and suicide prevention, because we are getting better as a society about embracing mental health challenges and the fact that it's okay to not be okay, and that it's okay to have times where you need to reach out to people for help, because everybody hits certain low points and challenges in life. So give Caleb Williams credit for bringing attention to that in a very positive way. Meanwhile, number 4, the NFL released its ruling on Philadelphia Eagles defensive tackle Jalen Carter. Again, you might have been delayed in seeing what he did by spitting on Dak Prescott, the Dallas Cowboys quarterback, because you were listening to your home for sports, the VTR and Sports app. Thursday night football. By the way, great matchup this Thursday. Washington Commanders at Green Bay Packers, 7:30 airtime for free, as opposed to having to pay money on all these streaming services. The NFL has suspended Jalen Carter for 1 game, but here's the catch. They consider the fact that he was ejected before playing a snap the suspension, and therefore his suspension was deemed to have been served in week 1. He will forfeit the game check, but he is eligible to play in week 2. To me, no. I am a Philadelphia Eagles fan. But if you're the NFL and you're talking about coming down severely on bad sportsmanship, and I get it, Dak Prescott might have spit in the direction of Jalen Carter. I get it. There may have been other words and things that were exchanged. I get it. The second guy always gets called, and Jalen Carter was the second guy in this. I get it. Philadelphia doesn't have the defensive leaders they've had in prior years because guys like Jarius Slay and Brandon Graham have retired or been traded or been let go. And that's part of what it is. And there's nobody to step up and be a leader and say, hey, I'm talented, but you got to get your act together, figure this thing out. I understand all that. And Jalen Carter would have benefited from any of that. But if you're the NFL coming down harshly, and you're talking about coming down harshly on sportsmanship, TJ, you're a fan of the Dallas Cowboys, who, as we know,
It's looking a little bit like those Dallas Cowboys is peaking in the 90s.
but I'm a fan of the Eagles, and I don't think this was enough. I think he should have been suspended for Sunday's game at Kansas City, game 2 of our triple header on the VTR and Sports app. That's what I would have liked to have seen from the NFL, rather than a 1-game suspension deemed to be previously served. And this is coming from an Eagles fan who is readily going to admit that that defense looks a lot more vulnerable without one of the top 3 defensive tackles in the NFL and Jalen Carter.
No, absolutely. It should have. I think it's funny that they just said, okay, this game's served because technically he didn't play in the game. So I think that's a load of crud. But
thank you for censoring yourself, by the way.
Yeah, a load of crud. But I will say, though, 50,000 with the way NFL's hefty on fines, I'm surprised they didn't do 100K, and I'm kind of glad they didn't because I think 100K fine for that would be crazy.
It would have been a lot, but I mean, look, for me, it would have just been suspend him 1 more game and forfeit the game check for that. And again, I don't know exactly what it is for Jalen Carter as the 9th pick in the NFL draft a couple of years ago. Somebody could go to SpoTrack or one of these websites so you can go back and get the official cap numbers. And, I'm not going to do
above $8 million.
Yeah, I mean,
more than $8 million.
So if you're talking about $8 million per year spread over a 16-game sample, that's at least a 6-figure fine. Like, at least that's what it is in base salary. But whatever it is, I think the NFL missed an opportunity here with Jalen Carter to make an example out of him. And this coming from a diehard Philadelphia Eagles fan who would rather him play from a winning standpoint, but thinks he should have sat out game 2 of our Sunday triple header, which, by the way, will begin with the Giants and the Cowboys, then the Philadelphia Eagles at the Kansas City Chiefs, followed by Sunday Night Football. Meanwhile, number 3. Former Virginia Tech head coach, Justin Fuente, not Brent Pry. He's not there yet. Justin Fuente is rumored to be targeted by the college football playoff as its new football senior advisor, according to Rich Clark. And we had a great interview with him, Fast Lane, Ed Lane, wherever you listen to podcasts, because
and guess what? We keep receipts.
Even though you have to dig back into the archives because it was at the ACC kickoff, so it's about a month and a half to 2 months from since we posted it. So it's a little bit deeper in there. But Justin Fuente, I think he's great for this role. He's a guy that clearly, with $8.5 million in a severance from Virginia Tech, has not surfaced in coaching anywhere. He's done a minimal amount of media appearances since that time. But I look, He's a guy who clearly knows the X's and O's of football and can identify it very well. Remember what David Cunningham said yesterday in the Fast Lane. Fast Lane, Ed Lane, wherever you listen to podcasts, or the link is up at techsideline.com because,
and guess what? We keep receipts.
And so do they. But for Justin Fuente, his strength is the X's and O's of football. He struggled with communication. I don't know if he's got the desire to get back into coaching, kind of view him more in the old guard of, he's well set financially. Does he want to deal with the headaches? Or is he more happy in these advisory roles where he's got plenty of money and doesn't have to work except on passion projects, which there's nothing wrong with that. I think people frown on that in society, and I don't think it's necessarily justified. But for Justin Fuente, I think he's a great addition to that committee when we've all said for so long that they just need some people in the room that understand football X's and O's. Having someone like Fuente, who that's his strong suit as an advisor, I think it's a good thing for that particular committee. Meanwhile, speaking of X's and O's,
Number 2.
Jamie Chadwell said that Trey Badowski, the offensive lineman, Joker CJ Bazell, and defensive tackle Mike Jarvis are all doubtful for the game this coming Saturday late afternoon in Bowling Green, Ohio. Liberty should still win this game. They're under a touchdown favorite. I think that's reasonable. But for Liberty, you're talking about 3 key pieces in the trenches where the offensive line, they've looked shaky already to start the year. Defensively, they've missed tackles, and CJ Bazell is the one guy that you can count on for Liberty to not play passive. I get Joseph Carter can certainly do that. I understand there are other players on defense that have stepped up as well, but CJ Bazell is the tone setter, and Mike Jarvis is a big physical presence. He's the one guy at like 6'4", 300 pounds, the one guy that's tall and pushing 300 on that defensive line. When you remove all those pieces, Liberty can win without that. I think they've got the right coaching staff and schematics to pull that off. But those are big, big losses for Liberty that we'll have to discuss with Jon Manson from ASeaofRed.com in about 10 minutes. Meanwhile,
Number 1.
JMU at Liberty. That matchup, which was originally slated to be a 6 o'clock kickoff, not anymore. It's been moved up to 3:30 p.m. next Saturday. It is sold out, but you can still get some tickets as part of the season ticket packages for Liberty Flames football. 5 remaining home games, including JMU. Lucky 4 people, they can get those tickets that are going quickly at InsaneRadioDeals.com. I think this is great. JMU at Liberty, it's going to be on ESPNU. I don't know how likely this is going to pop up in the future because JMU most recently announcing a couple of new additions when it came to their schedule, including, ironic, you only wish it would happen this year with Matt Saluka being on the roster, but ironic because, you're looking at ultimately for JMU, this is a matchup with UNLV that would be more fun if it at least happened in the near term. Meanwhile, speaking of the Liberty Flames, we'll get to that momentarily in a chance to get to some fam feedback.
Come join the chat or give us a piece of your mind. Trey Lyle VT and Fastlane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Now, it's time for fam feedback in the Fastlane.
All right, I got to get my usher on already. I don't often know who these people are with their Twitter handles that are out there, but we've chimed in on the Liberty Flames. We've gotten some feedback on the Commonwealth of Virginia. So when we start going through all that and potentially, trying to figure out who your identification is on Twitter, thank you for sharing it. But look, I can't begin to go pretending like I'm ciphering through and going through all of that. But Stanford Steve weighed in with the biggest big picture point, TJ. He said, Ed, I was trying to watch these Virginia college football teams this weekend, and it is incredibly frustrating. Can we pause right there? Sounds like a real diplomatic way to say it. It was brutal watching some of it. You were there in person for one of them, and the most brutal of all.
It was very brutal.
You've got that. We've got so many others. It was painful for that. But Stanford Seagats, both these teams, Virginia and Virginia Tech in particular, seem to not be able to make halftime adjustments. Quite pedestrian for football at this level. Are both of these coaches likely on their way out? So the halftime adjustments part, I think, is very reasonable. As games have unfolded, issues in the second half have been a real concern for these teams. They just have. It's been a real challenge for Virginia and Virginia Tech. I will go this far as to say for Virginia, they've got personnel that they have not had previously. And that's where I would say it's more concerning defensively because it did not get better. But offensively, They have been good and they've improved as the game has gone on. That is Tony Elliott's specialty. So I think it's worth bringing that up. But for Virginia Tech, absolutely. I mean, the second half of games repeatedly, it's been a bugaboo for Virginia. Evidenced by the record in one-score football games. The only win in that category in the Brent Pry era was at Liberty, year 1, 2022, the second to last game of Hugh Freeze's tenure at Liberty, when he basically had one foot out the door going to Auburn before the New Mexico State debacle against, ironically for Hokie fans, Diego Pavia, when he announced himself to the Commonwealth of Virginia, as he has done so often. We're very familiar with him, by the way, in the Fast Lane. If you'd like to join us, fastlaneedlane@gmail.com. We'd be glad to hook up with them. But I think all that's the reason why the talent's there at Virginia. And I've seen enough explosive offensive playmakers for Virginia. And combined with a cake schedule that is set up to where they, emphasize this word here, should get to more than just bowl qualification, but 7 to 8 wins at least at Virginia. That I think it's reasonable to look at Virginia as a team where the coaches are less likely on the hot seat. Not to mention the fact, and I think this is worth criticizing athletic director Carla Williams, but these kind of quiet under the radar contract extensions, not realizing that people were going to FOIA these type of things regularly and eventually get access to them. And then it looks like you're hiding something, which is a bad look for your fan base. And Carla Williams deserves to be called out for it. She could come on for an interview and we'd be glad to ask her about that. And then all of a sudden it wouldn't be an issue, but alas, she doesn't do much media availability. So she's missing that opportunity. Fastlaneedlane@gmail.com. or Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our listeners know how to get with us. It's very easy, although she might say,
Oh, no.
but it really is not. So are both coaches on the hot seat? I don't think Virginia's Tony Elliott is. I think it's too early in the season to see that. They were competitive in the loss to NC State. The offense looked really good. They've just got defensive concerns. But if they can clean that up, and I get if is almost as far as hope, as far as bad words that are forbidden in the fast lane. But for Brent Pry at Virginia Tech, this is the same thing again and again. And the fans getting up and leaving at the end of the third quarter and into the fourth quarter of that game. And you witnessed it in Blacksburg. And our listeners may have heard about it as it got more echoey and you could hear the PA announcer louder and louder in the fourth quarter when you were listening on the VTR and Sports app, your home for Virginia Tech football on Saturday night. I think to answer Stanford Steig's questions, that is the indictment of all this and the biggest part about where they are. And I think it's reasonable to say, yes, football at this level is incredibly frustrating. I'm not going to totally bury Virginia for that loss to NC State, but I think it's much more reasonable to Virginia Tech because it follows a trend and the fan base seems like they've spoken in Blacksburg that they're over it and they're ready for something different.
I won't bury Virginia, but I will say they had a good lead going into the half and then just choked it away. Not as bad as Virginia Tech, but no. I think you can be lighter on UVA, but that game should have been there.
Yeah.
And they know it.
It is, and they definitely do. And we'll get to more on that later because Stanford Steig has chimed in with some more stuff, and we've gotten some great comments from our fans like Les and Tommy about Bill Belichick and Jerry Jones and some of the things that we've seen in the early portion of the football season. But this guy, you may know who he is. It's Turtle Power 98. All the Liberty people know who they are. Look, they're great. I love them. They keep up with us on Twitter and Instagram. They are fantastic at interacting. But I can't tell you who some of these people are. Turtle Power 98 adds, for Liberty football and their struggles, the scheme is bad in my opinion. It's too passive. If you can't stop the run playing base defense, then you have to run blitz or do something to disrupt the other team. We, Liberty, always start off games in base defense, not in an attacking style, and often fall behind because of it. So I think that's a reasonable complaint that's right there. Now, Jamie Chadwell mentioned this earlier, and we played the soundbite as well, about how Liberty's defense right now, one of the things is it's not necessarily the scheme in and of itself. It's the fact that the players have got to find a way to be aggressive and play the aggressive style of football that you would want.
Probably could have been a little bit more aggressive in some situations. When you're giving up some maybe some chunk yardage, you get a little gun shy on certain things, and we probably could have been a little bit aggressive, especially on some third downs. We had them in some third downs, and he couldn't get them off the field, and maybe because we just were worried about maybe what they were going to do or some of the execution or how we could execute it. And you got to be aggressive and go with your gut. I think we'll learn from that.
So I think those go hand in hand, but I'll also say this much. It's early enough in the year. If we're having the same conversation about Liberty in mid-October, pick one of the midweek games at Liberty or even the road games. They've got 3 of them, 2 away, thankfully, 1 at home for Liberty. But if they're still looking passive defensively, I will much more chalk it up to scheme or the difficulty for the coaching staff to coach the scheme at Liberty. But I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt right now and say there's a lot more that can be done right now for Liberty overall. By the way, we've gotten more feedback. We're not going to get to it all today. We'll get to more of it tomorrow in the Fast Lane on Tech, UVA Liberty. Please keep it coming. TJ _Wilkerson 8, and Fast Lane Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. But when we return, Jon Manson from ASeaRed.com will dive deeper into this subject about Liberty, aggressive or not. What did he make of the press conference in light of the loss to Jacksonville State? All of that's still to come here in the Fast Lane, VTR and Sports app, and as that smart speaker, open VTR and Sports.
It's so worth the drive to big savings at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. Shop local and save more with exceptional service and selection. Your search stops here with over 900 pre-owned vehicles to choose from, plus a huge selection of new car brands in Southwest Virginia. Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, Subaru, Kia, Chevrolet, Mitsubishi, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. 11 new car brands, 900 used vehicles, all in one location. The Sheeler Motor Mile gives you more choices with pre-owned cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs. Many have miles in the teens, remaining factory warranties, and some are even local one-owner vehicles. More than any other dealer in the area, plus exceptional service, selection, savings, and financing options, and top dollar for your trade. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume with 11 new car brands and over 900 used vehicles, all in one location. And we're proud to support our local schools and community. The Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile, your premier car dealer, locally and family-owned for over 50 years. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com.
Is it time for a new place to call home? Moving out on your own? Perhaps your existing lease is up for renewal. Looking for a new roommate? Or maybe you just need a change of scenery. Then you need to check out brownstoneproperties.com. We have Central Virginia's largest selection of apartments, townhomes, and single-family homes. Applying is easy with our online application. Visit us online to begin your search at brownstoneproperties.com.
Love the outdoors, but not the bugs or dealing with the weather? Call Collins Custom Builders today to plan your sunroom or screen porch. Vaulted ceilings and windows all around, we can help you design your dream space to enjoy the outdoors while staying comfortable. Our customers have relied on us for 35 years to provide the best in service and materials. See some of our projects online at collinscustombuilders.com. Plan early and call today for your free estimate.
Hey, small to medium business owners, if you're frustrated with slow IT support, high costs, or paying for services you just don't use, it's time for a change. Hi, I'm Colt with We Fix Stupid Computers. We provide reliable on-site and remote support tailored for businesses just like yours. And we go beyond just fixing problems. We empower your staff with real tech knowledge so they can work smarter every day. From repairs to training to full IT support, we save you time, stress, and money. Call We Fix Stupid Computers, 434-525-8590, where smart support meets real savings.
NFL fans, tune into VTON Sports on 93.3 FM or 1320 AM or on the VTON Sports app on Sunday, September 14th for a full slate of games as the New York Giants visit the Dallas Cowboys. The Eagles go to Kansas City for a Super Bowl rematch. The Falcons battle it out with the Vikings. And then on Monday night, when the Buccaneers and the Texans go head-to-head and the Chargers head to Las Vegas for a showdown with the Raiders. Catch all the best games on VTON Sports right here on 93.3 FM, 1320 AM, and everywhere on the VTON Sports app. Or tell your smart speaker to open VTON Sports.
The money shot. You could describe many views in the Lynchburg area as the money shot, but on this TrostLaw.com Fast Take, we're discussing the Virginia Cavaliers' money shot paying off this past Saturday in their season-opening victory against Coastal Carolina. Yes, the jury is still out, but the fact that Tony Elliott even admitted after the victory against Coastal that a large part of the success is due to Carla Williams and the Virginia staff finding ways to invest in talent, but for paying them speaks to the money shot paying off.
Do you want to experience the benefit of radio and digital advertising for your business, but have no or limited funds to advertise? Let us tell you about InsaneRadioDeals.com. No cash needed. We will advertise your business on our 8 over-the-air AM and FM stations and our digital platforms that distribute out news talk, sports, and classic hits in exchange for gift cards, tickets, or experiences that will be used for your business. This allows you to advertise across the entire Virginia Talk Radio network without any cash needed and to generate a large amount of new business. Last year, we started over 900,000 streams on our online platforms, so VTRN, And InsaneRadioDeals.com is the place where your business gets heard. Want to learn more? Call Melinda 434-534-8500 or email info@VirginiaTalkRadioNetwork.com.
I'm not mysterious. I understand that. That's one of the things I'm not.
This is The Rich Eisen Show.
Oh, my word.
The Rich Eisen Show.
You are listening to the home of The Rich Eisen Show, hosted by me, Rich Eisen.
Watch out, cause I'm coming for you.
Tune in weekdays for the very best in the world of sports and entertainment with me.
I'm coming after you like every day.
The Rich Eisen Show.
Your humble host on The Rich Eisen Show.
The Rich Eisen Show, now 12 to 3 on your Virginia Talk Radio Network.
Step into the fast lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the fast lane.
How aggressive or not? Is it scheme or not? Is it just mental errors or not? Jon Manson from AseaofRed.com joins us now in the fast lane to unpack the Liberty Flames loss at Jacksonville State down in Alabama. He was there covering it for AseaofRed.com. Looking forward to the latest Sea of Red podcast dropping. And by the time you listen to this, if you're not listening live to the fast lane and you're just listening at Fast Lane, Ed Lane, however you consume podcasts, including YouTube and Facebook Live, then you might have already heard the Sea of Red podcast. But John, Liberty's loss down at Jacksonville State. The first thing Jamie Chadwell said when he spoke with the media was immediately talking about the lack of clean play, the issues that this team had, not with the effort, which I think it's key to distinguish that, but with the performance and self-inflicted mistakes. What was your takeaway from the tone of that and that being reinforced, but maybe with not as harsh of a tone when Jamie Chadwell met with the media today?
Yeah, I mean, that was no doubt the main takeaway and the reason why Liberty lost that game. That and then the defense's lack of their ability to stop the Jack State run game. You're not going to be able to go on the road in conference play and beat the defending conference champs, no less, when you have 2 turnovers, a turnover on down, a missed field goal, a touchdown taken off the board due to a penalty. Multiple special teams errors. You just can't overcome all that. I don't care how good of a football team you are. So those are the things that, Liberty has to clean up moving forward. Coming out of the season opening win against Maine, that was one of the biggest, takeaways in the positive side was Liberty did not have many, self-inflicted wounds, but, it resurfaced Saturday down in Jacksonville, and this was something that plagued the team, especially the last half of the season last year, but really the whole year. But there's a lot of new faces on the team, and it starts obviously with Ethan Vasco at quarterback, and he has to make better decisions throughout the game. You can't. I know quarterbacks out there for 50 plus plays every week, but those 2 or 3 that blunders you make that cost you a game, and that's exactly the Liberty on Saturday. It's something they have to clean up, and it's got to start this week at Bowling Green. And I know going into the season, most Liberty fans probably had that marked down as a W, but right, after response, we don't know how this team, like I said, with so many new faces, will respond coming off a loss and coming off some adversity. But we'll learn a lot about that this week, Saturday, up in Bowling Green.
Jon Manson, AseaofRed.com. He's at JC Manson and A Sea of Red on Twitter. And John is with us in the fast lane. John, offense is what people care about, so we're going to just do the natural radio thing. Whoever cares, we're going to start with defense because Liberty's defense has been a subject. Is it the lack of aggressiveness? Is it schematic? Is it just playing too passive and the players needing to have that little extra oomph to push and finish tackles and finish the job? What do you make of a defense that looked like they were a step behind and therefore getting burned constantly by Jacksonville State running back Cam Cook?
Yeah, I mean, it's really something that you have to leave that game scratching your head as a Liberty fan. And, you heard all throughout training camp, Coach Chadwell and the rest of the defensive staff and some defensive players talking about the potential this unit has. And I agree. I think they have the potential to be a good defense. And we've seen it at flashes. I think we saw it most of the game against Maine in the season opener. Maybe, take away 2 or 3 plays and they pretty much shut them down. Obviously, that's an FCS opponent. So when you take that step up to the FBS and playing defending conference champions in Conference USA in Jacksonville State. And the thing about that is you knew going into that game that Jack State was going to want to run the ball. They were going to live and die with their ground game. Gavin Winsat, their transfer quarterback, has not shown the ability throughout his career, and certainly not this season so far, the ability to consistently move the ball down the field through the passing game. So you knew Jack State was going to want to run the ball, and for them to get gashed for over 300 yards on the ground, picking up a first down that in crunch time, winning time in the fourth quarter, when Jack State is trying to put the game away. They had a 2nd and 20 after an offensive holding penalty, and they were able to run for 12 yards and then a penalty to cut it to 3rd and 4 and pick up that first down and kept the chains moving and went down to score what essentially ended up being the winning touchdown of that game. So it really leaves you scratching your head, how much of it is schematics, how much of it is, players just missing assignments. And, I think at this point in time, if it's players missing assignments, you just, have to move down your depth chart and find the next guy who can make the call. And, it is only week 2, so there's a long ways to go. You can't tear up everything you're doing and start from scratch at this point in the season. But, Liberty definitely needs to show some improvement on that side of the ball, or there may be bigger questions that'll have to be answered by Coach Chadwell as you get towards the end of the season.
Well, also you factor in that they're a team that defensively now you've got CJ Brazil, who's kind of the tone setter for that defense. He is doubtful for the game at Bowling Green this coming Saturday. Mike Jarvis, who's just their most physically stout, 6'4", almost 300 pounds defensive lineman, the one defensive lineman who kind of gets close to that 300-pound mark. How much of that factors into a run defense speed that was already struggling, now maybe putting more pressure on especially the edges and the linebackers to be able to come up and play with the right level of aggressiveness?
Yeah, those are 2 starters there on the defensive line that, like you said, are doubtful. Coach Chadwell said today in his press conference for Saturday's game against Bowling Green. And Eddie George is the head coach at Bowling Green now, the former Heisman Trophy winner at Ohio State. And obviously we know what he did in the NFL with the Tennessee Titans. And, he's going to want to feature their running game, and seeing what Jack State did to Liberty's defense, he's going to try to take full advantage, especially with the Liberty defensive line facing some injuries. And, we heard I'll go back to it. We heard all camp about the depth of this Liberty defensive line. So we're going to have to see that on Saturday, whether those guys are able to play or not. They're probably not at 100% and not going to get the same amount of reps they might have gotten otherwise. So, you're going to have to see a guy like a Brenton Williams, who we spoke to today, step into maybe making his first career start, the former Auburn transfer. And there's a number of guys on the interior of that defensive line that need to step up. Bryce Dixon's a guy who he was coming off an injury and has not started yet. He has played both of the first 2 games, but he's a multi-year starter. He needs to take that next step if he's back to 100% to help shore up that interior of the line, especially with Jarvis doubtful. So we've heard about the defensive line depth, and we may need to see just how good that 2nd and 3rd string is Saturday.
We hear the analysis is always good on the A Sea of Red podcast. That's, of course, not just because of Jon Manson, but more importantly because Richie Longshots is part of it. And let's just call a spade a spade. That's the reason everyone would consider it to be good, John. Meanwhile, the offensive side of the ball for the Liberty Flames, as you look at where they are right now, how much of this is on Ethan Vasco needing to make better decisions? How much of this is on the offensive line not giving him the right amount of protection with, here's a repeated theme here, but they're dealing with injuries as well?
Yeah, they got injuries as well, too. Trey Badowski left the Jack State game this past Saturday. Looked like a right ankle potentially. Did not return. That happened in the first half prior to the weather delay. And, So Liberty had already made the change to starting tackle with Earl Anthony coming in at right tackle to replace Jack Tucker. And then we saw Jack Tucker come back in after the injury to Badowski, and he was moved to left tackle, a place that he manned most of last season. So some moving pieces there on the offensive line. And it is a question mark. It is a concern. The offensive line unit is, after these first two games, pressure has been a concern, getting to Vasco. But at the same time, I sit here and look at the final box score, and Liberty had over 530 yards of offense. And like I said, 2 turnovers and a touchdown taken off the board due to penalty and a missed field goal. And, they scored 24 points against a Jack State team who's, coached by Charles Kelly, a longtime defensive coordinator at the highest level of college football. And you would think they would have a really good defense, and they showed that in week 1 against UCF, holding them to 17 points. And Liberty had a chance and probably should have scored 35-plus points in the game. But so it's hard to put too much blame on the offensive line. The Liberty was able to average over 4.5 yards per carry. Like I said, they had over 500 yards of offense, passed for 100 yards. Vasco did, and that was the first 300-yard passing game a Liberty quarterback's had since 2023, so did not have one all of 2024. So I have a hard time putting too much blame on the offensive line. Yes, there's room for improvement, but more importantly, like we said at the opening, is you got to clean up those mistakes and the penalties, the turnovers, the miscommunications, like you saw in that 4th and 2 play where Liberty went for it and turned it over on downs. You just got to clean that up. You can't have those type of blunders on the road in a game, like we'll see again Saturday against Bowling Green, where you're about a 5 or 6 point favorite. You're not going to be able to come out on top if you have too many unforced errors.
No, but you'll come out on top if you want the best Liberty Flames insight, and go to aseaofred.com and check out the A Sea of Red podcast and A Sea of Red on Twitter. John, thank you for your time today in the Fast Lane. We encourage our listeners, of course, to keep it locked to Fast Lane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Appreciate your time. We'll see you again over on the mountain in another week or so, and look forward to chatting as well.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, Ed.
Our pleasure. Jon Manson with us here to wrap up the Fast Lane today. If you missed anything, Fast Lane, Ed Lane, however you listen to podcasts, including Facebook Live and YouTube, more of your feedback. Keep it coming on Fast Lane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, because we'll discuss it Wednesday, 5 to 6 p.m. Thanks for listening to the Fast Lane on VTRN Sports, 93.3 FM, W227 BG Timberlake, and 1320 AM, WVGM Lynchburg.